We'll have a nice walk here in Turku. Yes, it's about 15 degrees Celsius plus degrees. A bit chillier than it has been for a couple of days, sometime, but this is springtime, so the weather goes back and forth between is the summer yet coming or not, but it's really nice weather for this time now. My name is Anna-Mari Laine, and I'm an authorized tour guide here in Turku, and I've been given the task to present you Turku live here, and we will eventually go, or quite soon, go to the river as well, the river Aura. But first we have to start here next to the cathedral, which is behind me. We will go in front of it as well, and you will see more. But this spot where I'm now is actually very elementary to all of Finnish history, cultural history, and the academic history of Turku. So that's why I have started this chosen this as a starting point. And as was already mentioned, please do ask questions if you have any. I might not be able to get them via the chat, but you can write them there, and some of the hosts will read them out loud. And I will sometimes also ask some questions, so you can reply then. And if there's anything you would want to see more of or hear more of, please do let me know. Yes, so at this spot here by the cathedral, there used to be the first school in Finland. The cathedral here, its foundations lay in the end of 1200s, when it was decided that the bishop's seat was to be moved on this hillock here. And that's considered sort of the start of the city center of Turku as it stands now. So the city started to grow outside the cathedral. We consider 1229 to be the founding year of Turku. And that year, the Pope, the Roman Catholic Pope from Rome, he wrote a letter where he allowed the bishop's seat to be moved from one place to another. But it didn't move here as of yet, at 1229 or thereafter. It moved to another place along the river Aura, about 2 kilometers from here. But then by 1270, they started to build this cathedral on this spot. And with that, when the cathedral was founded here, they started the schooling of boys. Of course, in those days, girls didn't get the official schooling. So the Cathedral School, as it was named, it was founded here outside the castle, the cathedral. There was a large wall around it, about 4 meters high wall. And attached to the wall, there were several buildings. And one of the buildings was the school building. It was approximately that way where my finger is now pointing. And from there, that was the start of the academic life in Finland and in Turku, as we consider it. And then 1640, the first university was founded in Turku. That was the Turku Academy. And that continued operation, or that started operations in that same building. But then later, early 1800s, they started to build this building here, which you can now see behind me, the Academy House building. They started to build that 1802, and that became ready 1815. So then the Academy of Turku got really nice house for itself and nice premises. Unfortunately, when it was it became ready 1815, and then the university started operating there. But unfortunately, only after about 10 years, 1827, Turku was devastated by a great fire, which is still today considered one of the largest city fires in Nordic countries. And 75% of the buildings in Turku burned down, and people lost their homes. Luckily, not many people passed or lost their lives, but also the academy building suffered substantially in the fire, and especially the library of the academy building. So in the second floor, I will, in a minute, I will turn the camera as well so you can see it a bit better, but now I'll just show. In the second floor of this building, in the corner here where I'm pointing, that's where the library was situated. And on that night, the 4th of September, 1827, unfortunately, the librarian, he was a very, very conscious man. He was a very hardworking man, and he was proud of his library. But on that night, he had forgotten to close the shutters, the metallic shutters that were there in the windows. And when the fire broke, the fire got inside the library, and it destroyed all of our cultural heritage, you could say. There were only few surviving pieces that survived the fire, and that was only thanks to the students and professors who had borrowed the books and taken them outside of Turku, although that was not allowed. So that's where we lost sort of a very large part of our history. And thus we don't have very many records about, for example, this cathedral building, when it was exactly built and how it expanded and so on. So when I'm saying something that we think, or then there's been archaeological excavations that have shown something, then we know, but otherwise we are a bit unclear in some aspects of our history because of this fire. And because of that fire also, we do not have many medieval monuments here in Turku. But one of the monuments anyway is this cathedral, which we will look a bit closer now. I'll turn the camera for you and you can see it. I'll move also a bit further out. So this Turku Cathedral is one of those buildings that we still have from the medieval times here in Turku. We have another one, which is the Turku Castle. But unfortunately on this tour, we won't have the time to walk all the way there. If I would take one of the scooters, we might have the time. It's only about 2.5 kilometers from here downstream, but we will concentrate a bit on this old center and then the modern day center on this tour. But you have to come back here and view the castle yourselves. Here is the cathedral. And as you can see, perhaps from here as well, it's a bit layered. So there's no specific architectural style in it, as it's been built in phases. In early 1300s, or actually year 1300, say the records, that it was consecrated. And then it was not this large. It was only probably a rectangular building, much smaller than this, and perhaps also of wood. So then it was burned down by the Novgorodians 1318, and then it took some time, quite many years, that they rebuilt it. But then they realized they have to build it of stone and bricks, as you can see. But first it was still, until 1400s, mid 1400s, it was still the rectangular building. And then they started to expand it. Because you see, the bishops of Turku, they all had to study in Europe, as we didn't have the proper higher education here. So they went all the way to Europe, to Paris, to Germany, and so on. And they saw, of course, the cathedrals, the basilicas there. And they thought, okay, we need one of those here in Turku. So they started to extend it. And they built all these side chapels. So from the rectangular, they expanded it sideways. And in the behind, you saw perhaps the round one, that was the choir area. So that was built mid 1400s. And then they also heightened the roof. So inside the cathedral, it's actually 24 meters up to the ceiling, very nice vaulted roof ceiling there. The tower has changed its appearance many times as well, because the cathedral has suffered many fires, same as the city. So this fire at 1827 was not the first fire, although it was the last one so far. And I wish really that we don't have anything like that ever again. But there has been many fires in the cathedral as well, and that's why you can see some of those tiles as well and bricks. They are the bricks are black still from the fires. And so this is the cathedral, and outside this cathedral, the city started to grow. Now you must remember that there was the big wall around the cathedral, and this all where we now have this open square and the parks, this was all small buildings, many of them wooden buildings. There were narrow streets everywhere and lots of hustle and bustle, as was fitting to this town that was one of the largest, or was the largest town here in Finnish area, and also the second largest in whole of Sweden, which we were part of during that time. Until 1809, Finland was part of Sweden, so-called Eastland of Sweden. And now the summer has started, and we have a terrace here outside the cathedral as well, a little peek to the modern day as well. So actually this was started last year, this terrace here. Due to the pandemic, people prefer to stay outside and meet their friends. And the terrace extends to the lovely park behind there by the riverside also. So very popular. It's Friday night now, so I think this was gonna fill up tonight a bit later when people get out of work and studies. There. Are there any questions?
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So the funny fact is that this park here outside the cathedral, as I was explaining, there were those tiny little streets and lots of buildings here. And after the fire, 1827, when it all sort of, most of it was destroyed, they just left the remains underneath the park and underneath the square and so on. So it hasn't been studied extensively. I always say on my tours that, okay, if there would be a tree that was falling down or needed replacing, then there probably would be an archaeologist that came to the spot first to check if there was something to be found underneath. We can take a small look at the miniature statue that we have here that will give you a bit clearer view of the old Turku before we move on to the riverside. Also, the building that you see straight in front of us now with the white pillars there, that's been built after the fire as well. And that is the head building of the Swedish-speaking university, Åbo Academy. I didn't explain yet, but the Turku Academy, the first Finnish university that was founded 1640, that actually was moved to Helsinki after this great fire of Turku and became Helsinki University. So Helsinki University was founded here in Turku 1640, but then moved to Helsinki after the great fire of Turku. And then we didn't have any university here in Turku until approximately 100 years ago. So 1918, the Swedish-speaking university, Åbo Academy, was founded, and it eventually then got its head building, its administrative building is right now here in this old building. And then 2 years later, 1920, so last year, 100 years ago, the Turku University, the Finnish-speaking university, was founded. So for a while we didn't have any universities in Turku, and then suddenly we had 2. And these universities, of course, still exist today. Oh, there are other higher, I saw that there's some question about the higher degree educational institutes. There are actually 6 of them altogether. They are the the higher schools of applied sciences, which there is one that is, it's the Swedish speaking Novia, and then there's the Finnish speaking ones. So all together we have 2 science universities, the ones that I just mentioned, and then 4 universities of applied sciences. Here we have the miniature of what Turku looked like before the fire. You can see all these are buildings here, building plots, and all these are streets leading from the cathedral to the great square, old square, where we are also now heading. And if there weren't so many leaves, we could see that the cathedral tower looks a bit different than it did in those days. But that's of course due to the fire as well. So as it was of wood, it burned down also in the fire and needed to be replaced. Did I answer your question about the higher education? I didn't see whole of the question. Yes, good. Okay, so now we are heading to the old square, which was then the administrative center of Turku. Now we see some roadworks here. As the summer is coming, so are the roadworks. Of course, we need to refurbish the streets and all infrastructure involved, because the city is also evolving continuously. Here is the great square, and now if we would have been able to, we would have walked along a straight road from the cathedral to this square. I will show you a bit how it looks here. There's the cathedral. You can still see it behind the leaves. There used to be a straight road here from here to the cathedral that was called the Great Church Road. So people could walk between the spiritual center of town and the administrative and commercial center, which was here on the square. The buildings here at the square nowadays, their appearance is of course from the 1800s after the fire, but we still have names for them that reflect the old Turku. So this building here we call the Old City Hall. That was the place where the city was governed from, where the courts sat, and so on. So here I can actually show you a plaque, a sign which shows you a bit what the nice city hall looked like before the fire. There was a big tower, a tower with a bell there. So this building was here at this spot where this yellow building now is. The cellars are still there from the old times, but the appearance otherwise has changed drastically, as you can see.
Hello, Anna-Mari. Here is one question. Do both university students celebrate Vappu together here in the square?
No, in this square, the Vappu is not celebrated, actually. Vappu is celebrated elsewhere in town. They come together, the both university students, for the capping of Lilia statue in the eve of Vappu on the last day of April, but they have their separate capping ceremonies. Actually, the Swedish-speaking university, the students, they are on this hill, where you can see there's an observatory on that hill. We will look at it closer when we come to the river, we see it from there, but there's an observatory on that hill, Vartiovuori Hill, and there the Swedish-speaking students gather. And then we have the Art Museum Hill, which is on the other side of the river. I will aim to show that to you later. And that's where the Finnish-speaking university students, Finnish-speaking students, they gather there. They put on their white caps, but then they both come together at the Lilja statue and put the cap on Lilja, which is a female form, well, a female in a statue form, you could say. But we will, I think I have plans to show that to you. But first, it's just a couple of words of this building here. This building is the so-called Prinkala building, and this became the city hall after the fire because it was preserved better in the fire, and it became the city hall. Then the courts were there, and also the police station was here until 1985. The police station was here. But why this is very important nowadays as well? The police station is no longer here. There are just there are really nice cultural places here. But this balcony here, this is one of the most important things in Finnish Christmas tradition, you could say. And that tradition is this declaration of Christmas peace. On the 24th of December, so Christmas Eve, at noon Finnish time, Christmas peace is declared from this balcony. And that marks for many, many families the beginning of Christmas celebrations.
May I say here, sorry, Anna-Maria,
yes.
I will say here, because we met Mika Akkanen in the opening ceremony of this
yes.
event, Easy to You opening ceremony. So Mika Akkanen is the one who is reading this declaration.
Yeah. So this is a very ancient tradition, goes back to the 1300s, medieval tradition of declaring peace, not only at Christmas time, but other celebrations as well. But we have kept the Christmas peace declaration going. So it actually states that you have to behave during this Christmas time or you will be punished. And actually what the text also says that you will get more severe punishment if you do not behave. So if you get a fine for drunkenness or something, you get an extra fine for breaking the peace. So it is a very nice tradition. And if you're interested how it looks like, they are also on YouTube to be seen from past 12 years or so, the Christmas peace declarations. So very nice blick in view to the Finnish culture. So please do check it if you want to. And now a view to the medieval town. This is the only remaining street line that we have from pre-Turku fire. Because after the fire, there was a German architect that was given the task, Carl Ludwig Engel, was given the task to renew the city plan of Turku. And he did it, and he made a square city plan, fire-safe city plan, and he only left this one street here to remind us what the city had looked like before. And now we consider that this was one of the main streets of medieval Turku. So it was quite narrow, as you can see, and people walked along it, and there were even horse carts along it. So this is the remaining one. And if you wish to see more of medieval Turku, then one good time to come to Turku is during the first days of July normally, or last days of June, when we have a medieval market here, and we showcase the medieval living in Turku and in Finland during those days. It's a very lively market, lots of the wall colors, yes. They of course try to, there's no particular meaning with that, but of course in the medieval times, for example, they used lots of natural colors, so no paints and so on. So that's why they try to reflect in those the old colors as well, although the appearance of these buildings is strictly from 1800s after the fire. So this is actually the Cathedral School in Turku. So this is actually the Swedish-speaking high school in Turku nowadays. In the old days before fire, there were actually 3 buildings on its site, but this school is sort of carrying on the tradition of cathedral schools in Turku, as we know that it has started here a long time ago. And now finally we come to the river side. There used to be a bridge here. So in the old times, perhaps you saw in the miniature, there was a bridge, and it would have gone from this great old square to the other side of the river. As the river flows straight through the city, there would have not been any other means to cross the river. So 1414, the Swedish king declared that you should build a bridge, and so they did. I see that some people are giving the links to the Christmas Peace Declaration. That's good. So here we have, now I'm showing there's the cathedral. And here's one of the bridges that was built after the fire, or Carl Ludwig Engel wanted to have a couple of bridges across the river, but not on this place where the river had been standing from 1400s till the fire 1827. Then there's some other bridges along the river there. So the river actually, it looks like it's flowing up here, but it's actually flowing down there. So the Baltic Sea and is that way, and the city harbor. Yes, somebody asked about the things that are hanging on the trees. We have sort of like a event here that's been now going on for a couple of years every springtime. It's a handicrafts type of event. It's called Knit and Tag. So people can knit things, and or different organizations, they reserve a tree and then they decorate it by knitting and tagging. So this is sort of knit tagging. It's a phenomenon where people started, instead of spraying graffiti on things or destroying the trees, you just put knitted things around them, decorate them thus, and they hang there for 2 weeks and then they are removed. So there's different kinds of decorations, knitted things and handicraft marvels in these trees. Some have used more and some less imagination, but they are very nice to see, as you can see here. And they go on this side of the river and also on the other side. If I remember correctly, altogether there are about 30 trees that have been decorated. So on the other side of the river, you can see the so-called Vähätori Square, like smaller square. And there are some restaurants, open air restaurants. It's become a sort of like a living room of Turku where people like to sit. And then here by the river, you see electric boats. These are for hire. So you can hire them for 1 hour or 2 hours and cruise along the river all the way to the harbor and back. Yes, the cherry blossoms were there, but most of them have now fallen as we had some rainy days as well, and they came so fast. They'd been waiting for so long to blossom, and then they blossomed for a short while and went away. So here we have the knit and tack trees. These trees, by the way, are all from the 1800s. So after the fire, the people of Turku started to decorate the riversides as well. For a long time, it was very barren after the fire, as the fire had destroyed everything. But then they started planting these trees. And so they are very old trees. And here you see again the observatory I was talking about. The observatory was actually built after the fire, before the fire, 1819, and it survived the fire as well, thanks to a German astronomer called Argelander. He was there in the night and he put out the flames by by climbing on the roof and extinguishing them as they came. So he saved it. It is on the highest hill of Turku, 52 meters above sea level. So Turku is actually in this river valley. The center is in this river valley, but nowadays it's already extended beyond here and to the hills. We like to say that we have 7 hills here, like the best of towns, Rome, for example. I think as we count, there are at least 8 of them, but 7 is a good number. And they were very barren, those hills in the old days, in medieval times and thereafter. There were just some windmills. But in the 1800s, when they decorated the riversides, they also started decorating the hills and made them parks and so on. On the other side of the river, you see very nice buildings, and many of them house some of the best restaurants in town also. So very nice spots to have dinner. We like to call ourselves the restaurant capital of Turku, as we have very many independent restaurants, not these like national chains and so on, and very high class restaurants at that. Then we have quite many museums here in Turku, and here's one example of them. This is the Apovetus Museum. It's Apovetus and Ars Nova, actually, and for those of you who speak Latin, you might understand what it means. So Apovetus means Old Turku and Ars Nova, new art. And why this funny name? Well, this actually started, or this building that you can see here, it's actually originally from 1928, a residential house of the Rettig family, very wealthy family who lived here and who had, for example, cigarette manufacturer. They were also shipbuilders and ship owners, and had lots of different industries. But in the 1980s, 1990s, they didn't live here anymore. They had moved on, the family elsewhere. So they gave this up, and it ended up as a property of a foundation, Matti Koivurinta Foundation, who wanted to put up their modern art in this building. But when they started digging in the gardens that is behind this wall, they found the remains of the old Turku. As I explained before, after the fire, the old buildings were left there, and the new ones and parks and whatever were built on top of them. So they realized that, okay, we have the old Turku here underneath, perhaps we should make a double museum. So instead of making this modern art museum only, they built a double museum with the old Turku and the new art. Thus the name Apovetus Ars Nova. And now you might wonder what this elephant is doing here as well. I have to explain that, I think, because it's so prominent. So that is actually a piece of art by a female artist whose name now escapes my memory, actually, but she did this to honor the old times and history as well. So it is sort of like printed in the stone, like a fossil, like this elephant. And thus it suits very well in the front of this old history museum as well, and modern art museum. This is one of the heaviest pieces of art in Turku, actually, as it's full stone. And why the elephant? The elephant is true to the fact that this, the block next to this housing block, it was called Elephant. Carl Ludwig Engel, the German architect, he named these all these different quarters here in his city plan. He named them, many of them after animals or ancient creatures and so on. Yeah, I was thinking it was Hanna Vihriälä, the artist, who made this. Sometimes you should trust your first instinct. Okay, so now we're gonna cross the river by this bridge here that you see in front of us. This is the newest bridge across the river. It's from 2013, and it's for pedestrians and light traffic like bicycles and scooters, e-scooters, as you saw one there. We also have city bikes here in Turku. There you see a row of them in front of us there. That's a city bike system provided by the city of Turku. And that and also these e-scooters have become quite popular modes of transport here. As we do have so many students also, about 40,000 students in these six organizations for higher educational institutes. So there's plenty of young people. The whole population of Turku is now about 194,000, a bit over. Here on this bridge, I always like to pinpoint the Turku Castle, which you can somewhat see there in the distance. There's a tall chimney, and if you look from the chimney to the left, you can see two triangles, and that's the roof of Turku Castle that's in the distance. Turku Castle was also built end of 1200s to protect this city from the enemies. And it was built on a small island, but then as the crown lifts here all the time, so in every 100 years, the crown rises about 40 centimeters. So the scenery has changed a bit, and also Turku Castle now is part of the mainland. This post-glacier rebound, as it's called, it's this heavy, or this the speed of it here is about 40 centimeters 100 years, but elsewhere in Finland along the coast it's almost up to 1 meter per 100 years, and so that's a very prominent rise. And as you can see, there are lots of people here enjoying the weather and the river scenery. Here's one of the cafes that's one of the most popular cafes along the riverside, Cafe Art. Not very many people sitting there yet, but I bet they are coming. Now I have a choice whether I'll show you the Lilia statue or I showed you the art museum, but I think I try to show you both. It might be a bit hard to see the statue of Lilia, which is prominent in the 1st of May Vappu celebrations, but it is in the park across the river right there. It's not very big statue, but it's there where the bus is moving right now. And that's the park where the university or the students and also then city people alike who have their white caps on, they gather there to put a cap on this Lilia statue. That tradition has started already in the 1929 when the statue was put there. That statue is one of the first, is actually the first outdoor statue that city of Turku purchased. They purchased it from Väinö Aaltonen, our national sculptor. It was put there 1929, 28, and 29 in the first Vappu that there was, this 1st of May celebration. The students gathered there in the middle of the night and put the cap on. Only since 1940s has this tradition been approved of an official. Here we walk along the riverside. And
Anna-Mari, here
yes.
is a question, easy question from Ludovic. How many bicycles are in Turku?
Oh, I can't say really, but if you consider that there are 40,000 students, and I think every one of them has a bicycle, and then you count all the population. So I think Finnish people have lots of bicycles. So, okay, let me guess, to give you an estimate. I think there are about 150,000 bicycles in Turku. I don't have a clue, but that was a very good question.
There are
not,
300 that kind of folly bicycles.
yes,
Bicycles. You might tell about those.
Yes, so that was the city bikes I was showing, the yellow ones. So they are 300 of them, and you can rent them from the stations, and you have meaning that you have to purchase like a sort of pass for either a day or a month, and then you can use them so much as you want during that day or that month. Only that you at one go you can go 30 minutes on the bike, and then you have to swap it. But actually, as you have perhaps already noticed, Turku is very walkable and short distance city, so it's very hard to go somewhere within the city limits that is further than 30-minute bicycle ride. Of course, some of them are, for example, in the student village, which is the main student housing hub here outside the city center. There are also fairly bicycle spots there, and those are very popular. Yes, there's some very nice restaurants here, as you can see. One new one up here, also Åbo. And then in this corner we have Bassi. And then we will come to the riverside restaurant soon. Now the yellow, the light changed red, so I'm not going that way, but I'm showing you the city center that way, and then the art museum hill is there. Up on the hill you see the art museum, and that's the hill where the Finnish-speaking students gather for Vappu and put on their caps. So it's actually quite nice view also if you are here and watch them putting on the white caps. It's like a sea of white at that time. Although I must confess that I've never been watching it from here, because I've always been amidst them, as it's not only the students, but it's also the population of Turku, all those people who have their caps, that, well, not all, but many of them who come to the hill and put on their caps on that evening. The city center is a bit under turmoil, as you can see already from here. The market square is there, just 2 blocks from where I'm standing now. And the market square is under building work, as they have put an underground car park there. That is now ready, but now they are putting the top of the market square on its place. They're building new pavilions and so on. So next summer, after a year, it will look wonderful and marvelous. Then there are also other restoration work being done on these houses along this street. And this one from early 1900s, this building here, the Verdandi building, it was just restored, and as you can see, it looks really marvelous. So we still have some of these old buildings here left, also from the Jugend, the so-called Jugend time or Art Nouveau time, also on that hill across the river as well. And then this building here, I'll turn the camera for a little bit, and this building here behind me, that's the city hall nowadays. So that's where the city decision makers, they are convene in halls that are in here behind those windows. This building is from 1812. It used to be a society house, so to say. It used to be a hotel and restaurant where the city bourgeois and the noble people, they gathered to have big celebrations in the halls here behind those windows. But now, since 1888, it's been the city hall where the decision makers gather and make good decisions. It has, of course, changed appearance as well in the late 1800s. It didn't look like this in the early 1800s when it was built. But it was saved from the fire. As the big Turku fire, it stopped actually here by this bridge, which we just passed. At the end of this tour, I will now present you one of the highlights of the summer living in Turku, which is of course the riverside we've been already seen, and then these restaurants restaurant ships that are here along the river. You can only now see 4 or 5 of them in this row. Then further down the stream there are more. I think there are about 10 or 11 this summer that are functioning. So they are very popular spots to have a drink when the weather is fine, and also have some meals, because some of them also serve food. This one here, the Svarte Rudolf that you can see, that is actually open all year round. So it operates even during the winter time, and you can eat inside. Somebody was asking something which I couldn't catch.
No, it was me, Erja, who was answering about the cycling.
Okay.
Oh,
okay, good.
There is a question. Is there rowing?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, actually there isn't. There have been some canoes sometimes for hire, but rowing, no. I think that is also due to the fact that you can't see it perhaps here, but you can see now the wind is blowing the water upstream even, and there is this river doesn't have very high current, but still it might be a bit difficult to row on it. Sometimes, of course, we see people, they have these like long rowing boats, like the Oxford style rowing boats where they compete in. So that happens here sometimes, and there are some teams, but for public there's no rowing available. One more building to show at least is this wooden building behind the Svarte Rudolf boat. You cannot see it so well here because the leaves have come, which is of course nice, but sometimes it would be nice to show the buildings. So this Sampalina building there, I'll go a bit higher, perhaps you see it better. It's an old wooden building from 1865. And it's always been in restaurant use as it's nowadays. Nowadays it's a bit of youth spot, but actually it was built there 1865 to accommodate the passengers of steamships. So this actually, where these boats are now, the restaurant boats, this used to be the steamship harbor where you would catch a boat to Sweden. I know the time has come and there are already some people who are leaving, so I thank you also from me. As you can see, there would have been so much to show you. I will move the camera a bit more here so you can see. I hope you enjoyed the tour. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, but otherwise I thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and I really wish to see you here in Turku sometime as soon as the restrictions lift and it's possible to travel, and as soon as you have a possibility to visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna-Maria. And here is
was there the sound cut off? I don't know if there was some questions or something.
Oh, sorry, my sound cut off.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that there are plenty of thank you notes for you. This was very nice tour in Turku.
Good, thank you. And luckily we had the nice weather as well, but we also are in the part of Finland where there is plenty of sunshine, so there's a good chance of it always. So thanks for me as well.
Thank you. And if somebody wants, we still have coffee room. You can come there at the Liveta platform. See you, and thanks,
Okay,
Anna-Maria.
bye-bye. Bye-bye.